Lately, people have been telling me that Seattle is a terrible and dangerous place to be. Well, this is where I parked last night, and it sure doesn't seem too terrible or dangerous, either one. We are in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, which is very close to downtown Seattle. And this is a neighborhood that I used to spend some time in several years ago, but I have not been here very much in the past 2-3 years or so. So I thought this would be a good place to come back and just check out, see if it's changed. Maybe there have been changes. Maybe we'll find some danger and some not so great stuff. Let's go around the corner here, drive over to a park that I used to really enjoy. So we're going to drive over to Volunteer Park, which is just here on our left. I was parked just a block or two away from the park entrance. And one thing that I'm noticing that is somewhat the same is there are plenty of vehicle dwellers, both car and, well, I should say car, RV, and van dwellers that are parked along the road here to our left. This is where I used to park. When I would park up here, back the first few times I've been to this park, I would park right along this road. There still are a bunch of vehicle dwellers that are parked here, although there are a lot less vehicle dwellers parked out on that road than there used to be. Used to be a little bit hard to find a parking spot on that road in amongst all the vans and RVs that were parked there at night. Okay, drove around a little bit here to find a sunny spot to park in. I like to park in the sun because that way I'm generating solar power while the van is sitting. Now, this is it. This is Volunteer Park. I used to come down here quite a bit, and you can probably see why already. It's a big, huge, sprawling park. And it's a nice place to be on a day that you just want to sit around or just enjoy a park-like setting. Usually lots to do around here, and the views are pretty good in some of the spots in the park. Let's try to go find one of those now. Okay, here we go. Here's a little view of the city down behind us. And there's a little spot that people like to come over to here. There's a little art installation back here that you can take your picture through and have a nice little view down to the city behind. I've never done that. Seems a little touristy, but I guess I am a tourist. Okay, now I remember why this is here. It's all about the Space Needle, the view of the Space Needle behind us. Makes sense. Well, they're either loading up something or unloading something for some events going on here. Don't know what that is, but there's usually always something going on here. They've always got things to do, things planned out here at this park. This water tower has an observation deck on it, and I've been here during the week, on the weekends, all different times, and sometimes it's open, sometimes it isn't. So let's see if it's open today. If it is, we'll climb up the stairs and take a peek out. It appears to be open today, although I don't remember it being this ominous the last time I was here. This is so cool. The last time I was here, well, the last couple times I was here, it was packed. You couldn't hardly get to any of the little window lookouts. So this is awesome. I've got this place all to myself at the moment. Well, that was awesome. I'm glad I got to do this. The last couple times I've been here, I did not get a good view out the windows just because it was so packed up there. Today, just now, a few people came in as I was leaving, so had the whole place for myself for several minutes. That was very, very cool. But now I am very, very hungry. So there's a little bakery that's not too far of a walk away from here. So let's go down there and get ourselves a coffee and a pastry for breakfast, I think. So the bakery that we're heading to is called Macrina Bakery, and everything they make is really fantastic. She's made quite a name for herself in the pastries and bread that she sells here. It's one of the more popular bakeries in the city, and I think they make the best sourdough loaf in the city as well, so maybe we'll get lucky and find one of those too. So yes, it's early yet, but my observation so far is that, at least for this neighborhood of Seattle, it's a little bit less busy and a little bit quieter than it used to be back when I would spend some time here. So yeah, there's some changes so far. Coffee is really good. It comes from another local company called Cafe Umbria, one of coffees that I've had and I really like. I did overdo it a little bit. I bought a sticky bun there, and then I also bought a buttermilk biscuit. It has a little bit of raspberry jam on top. Guess I didn't need all of this, but it's all so good. I just couldn't help myself. So I'm sitting here enjoying my coffee, and I can't help but to notice this motorcycle that's chained up across from me. Look at the size of the chain on that thing. Look at that. That's enormous. That's got to tell you something right there, doesn't it? Maybe this is just a terrible neighborhood. That was a joke, by the way. This is not a terrible neighborhood. I did not eat my buttermilk biscuits yet. We'll save that for later. Probably need some real food. That sticky bun was really good, but it was also very sweet, and I have not been eating a lot of sugar lately. Just not had the desire for sugar much lately, so I think I'm a little tapped out with the sweets for the moment, so we'll enjoy this later and head back toward the van and volunteer park right now. I've always really enjoyed this neighborhood, and I've always really liked this park. The fact that there's so many trees in this neighborhood, and in this park in particular, it's a really good place to spend some time on a warm day. And today's supposed to be one of those warm days. Maybe hot, considered hot to Seattle. Supposed to be at least 80 today. Well, good news, everyone. The van is still here. Looks okay. So again, there's another little check mark for being the good neighborhood here. Although the only problem I see is I'm not pulling in much solar at the moment, but getting a little bit on my rear panel there, I guess. Well, I just checked my Victron app for my controller here. These Victron controllers come with a Bluetooth app that will tell you the state of charge of the battery. It gives really detailed information. It's a really nice app, so I just checked that, and I'm almost fully charged at the moment, so I don't need to worry about solar, but it is something I kind of have to keep in mind, because on warmer days my fridge-freezer combination will pull quite a bit of power, so it's something I have to watch from time to time. If I am worried about power, I can always turn my freezer off, and then the fridge is pretty efficient at that point. But with the freezer on, it's not quite so efficient. And it is feeling pretty warm today. I think it's already 80 degrees. Much better in the shade, but when you're out in the sun, I walked quite a ways in the sun, it was feeling pretty warm. Well, something that I do quite often is I'll sit in the van with my door open. If I'm just going to take a little break from walking, or if I'm cooking or just doing anything, I'll just sit with my door open, because I want to have that feeling of being outside if I'm not actually outside. But you do have to be a little bit mindful about things, and something just happened just now. A guy walked up expecting to maybe steal something out of the van, and he was a little bit surprised to find me sitting here. He just kept walking. He didn't give me any trouble, but I mention it because this is one of the things we're talking about today. Big cities do have people that are opportunistic, and that's any city, I've found. It's something I've encountered here in Seattle in the past. It's not been a huge problem, but it is something that you do have to just keep in mind. And if I do have my door open like this, I do have to just keep one eye out and make sure that people aren't just skulking around looking to try to take something that they can just easily grab. It's not something I like to talk about, but it is a reality of living your life in a van, on a street, and especially in a big city. Well, it wasn't a good idea to order sweets instead of food. I really should have ordered actual food because it's at that temperature now where I don't really want to cook anything. It's nice and comfortable in the van still. Probably, you know, I've kept my ceiling fan on, so that does really help a little bit. I find on the warmer days, if I suck the air from my floor vent and up through the van and out the roof vent, it seems to help a little bit more. Once it cools down outside, I flip the fan around and pull air into the van, and then it pushes air down through the van and down through the floor vents, and for some reason it works better that way, which is a nice thing that I have a fan that I can reverse as needed. So I've had this going all morning, so it's kept it nice and cool in here. But I still don't really want to turn the stove on because then it's going to warm it up in here and lose all that cool. So I'm going to snack on some cheese. I buy these 2-pound blocks of Tillamook cheddar. I think they're 2-pound blocks of Tillamook cheddar. And I on hot days I'll just snack on them instead of actually cooking something. I would much prefer a grilled cheese or a quesadilla or something, but this is okay. Oh, you know what? I have some pepperoni. Yeah, that's it. Pepperoni and cheddar cheese. That'll tide me over for a little bit. I've got chips too, but I bought 2 bags of chips yesterday, or 2 days ago, and I've not wanted to get into the second bag because I just don't feel so great after I eat a bunch of chips. The olive oil chips don't bother me whatsoever, but these regular, just what did they fry them? Vegetable oil, so canola, sunflower, safflower. Yeah, it just seems like whenever I eat stuff that's fried in just regular vegetable oil, I don't feel so great. So I'll get to these at some point, but I don't think I want to eat them today. I'm glad I got the pepperoni. It is frozen though, because it's been in the freezer. I forced myself to get up and walk around a little bit. I was hiding away to try to stay out of the warm temperatures, but if I can walk around in the shade, it's actually pretty nice. Well, one of the things I've always liked about Capitol Hill is it's a very walkable neighborhood. Now, it's walkable if you don't mind some hills. It is very hilly around here, but it is very walkable. And if you go back in the other direction, the opposite direction that we're heading right now, it'll take you down into the town, into the city area. And one of the reasons I would come out here is there is one of the best co-op / health food stores I've ever seen, called Central Co-op. And it's hard for me not to go just walk over there, but I don't really need anything today, so I should probably just stay out of there. But it's an awesome store. There's also a Trader Joe's right near there too, and a little bit farther down is the more well-known area of Capitol Hill that has all the coffee shops and restaurants and bars and things. That area is a bit more busy. The area we're in right now is the quieter part of town, and this suits me a little bit better. Well, I'm not quite back to the van yet, but I thought I'd take a little break for a second since it is in the shade here, and we are stopped right here next to the cemetery, which is fairly notable because that is where the movie star / martial artist Bruce Lee is buried. His son is buried right next to him as well. I was going to go walk over there, but I'm a little more drawn to the shade today. It is 80 degrees out, and I know that that's not terribly hot. In fact, where I'm from, I think it's about 115 or so today. So, you know, I'm happy to be in 80-degree weather, but yeah, I'm a little bit overheated. So I'm enjoying the nice shade that we have here. So probably won't go over and show my respects to Bruce or Brandon, but I have done that before, and it's just a short little walk down the road and into the cemetery here if you are in this part of town. If I remember correctly, a bunch of the trees that line the roads through the park here are cherry blossoms. So when they flower, which I think is in the spring, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong about that, but when they do flower, it is beautiful out here, and it's probably the prettiest time to come here and visit Volunteer Park, but it's pretty nice today too, I think. Yeah, this makes me happy. I got sun on my panels again. Not that I was worried, but this is Seattle, so we're always happy when you see the sun. Well, I'm really not very hungry still. Usually when it gets warm, I just don't have much of an appetite. I have been drinking plenty of water, so taking care of that, but haven't wanted coffee either. Well, I would take a cup of coffee again if it meant me not turning my stove on. Again, I don't want to warm up the van, so I think I'll just hold off on coffee for later. It does seem to get cool at night, so I'll just have to wait till it cools down a bit before I put the kettle on. Why did I have to think of coffee? Because now I want some. Hey, wait a minute, I have an idea. I have a little electric kettle, and this I don't use very often because I don't usually have the solar to be able to recharge my portable power supply after I use this, but today we've got plenty of sun out, so I'm going to get this going. I'm going to make myself a nice little cup of coffee. There's a few things about this kettle that I don't really like. One is the cord is very stiff, and so it makes the kettle want to tip over very easily, so I always just set the kettle down on the floor here, plug it into my portable power supply. This is a little Rockpals 300 portable power supply, and it just feels safer that way. Several people have told me to get an extension cord or something, but I don't see why I should do that. This works perfectly fine. The Rockpals usually sits down there anyway, so I just plug it into where the Rockpals is. And one of the other things that I'm not crazy about with this little kettle is that it's really hard to pour out of because it doesn't have a spout. So what I do, because I think, again, it's safer, I just take my pouring kettle and I just dump this into the pouring kettle. It's not, I just spilled a little bit here, but it's usually easier for me to get it into the kettle and then pour off of the kettle than it is for me to try to pour straight into the AeroPress. And if I'm doing pour over coffee, of course I really need the pour over kettle because that's what it's made for. But the one more issue that this creates is I've now cooled the water down a little bit. Now it's going to be cooled down just a few degrees, but I am using a light roast coffee, and so with the light roast coffee you really want to keep the temperature as hot as you possibly can get it, so straight off the boil. So what I do to compensate for that, since I'm doing all this and dropping the temperature of the water, I just turn my stove on for about a minute and just heat the water back up a little bit. That way I get the best tasting coffee and I don't heat up the inside of the van quite so much. Just a minute of running the stove is not going to be a terrible thing. I can turn the fan up on high and pull that excess heat out pretty quickly. Not quite so easy if I were going to run the stove for the whole boiling process though. So you know, there's some drawbacks to a little kettle like this, but it is helpful, and so glad I have it on occasions like this, but honestly I just really don't use this very much. Now there's actually one more drawback to using this little electric kettle, that I forgot to mention, and that is the amount of power that it draws. So this little Rock Pals 300 was at 100%, just about 100% when I started. We're down at, what does that say, 76%? I can't read backwards. So yeah, 76%. So I'll plug this in now, but with this type of sun and in this area, this kind of northern area that we're in Seattle, it will take about 3 hours to recharge this battery pack up to 100% again. So this cup of coffee that I wanted costs me 3 hours of charging time, solar charging time. That's something to keep in mind. And of course, if I were down south, Southern California or Arizona, that would be about 2 hours of charge time, but still, it's just something to keep in mind. And it's definitely worth it, especially because I've got some pretty premium coffee today, but it is something to keep in mind, and it's another reason why I don't use this little electric kettle very often. Well, since I have to eat something, and I have this buttermilk biscuit that I bought earlier today, I'm going to enjoy this. It is a sweet buttermilk biscuit. It's got some sugar on top, and of course the raspberry jam. So it's not the perfect thing to tide my hunger over, but I don't want to turn my stove on right now. It'll be cooled down outside in a couple of hours, and then I'll make dinner then, but this is going to go really good with my nice cup of coffee, so this is it. It'll tide me over for now. So let's get back to the question that I started off with this morning, which is Seattle a terrible and dangerous place? I would say not really. The full answer from me is Seattle is a big city, and there is always a bit of danger, and there's always a bit of not so great parts about big cities. I do a lot of traveling. I go to a lot of big cities and small cities, and I find the same thing everywhere I go. There are good parts of the city, there are bad parts of the city. No matter what city I'm in, I find that. And Seattle's no different. Now, obviously, I didn't do a real extensive bit of research here. I came to one neighborhood. I didn't go all over the city, but I came here to Capitol Hill because this is a neighborhood that I used to frequent years ago, but I have not been here in quite a while, and so I figured this would give me a good view of if things have changed over that time. And from what I've seen, it's not been a big change, been just minor changes, and still just as nice of a place now as it was back then. So, maybe you're going to say I should have gone to some neighborhoods that were a little more sketchy, and I do know some neighborhoods that are sketchy around Seattle, but just like when I travel to other places, I try to stay out of those areas. I try to stay in the nicer areas of the cities that I do go to, and I don't see why I should do any different nowadays. If you're inviting danger, then you're probably going to find it. But anyway, this was a nice little trip back here. Brought back some memories of hanging out here in this park, hanging out in town. I used to do a bunch of shopping down here, so this has been a pleasant place for me to be. And no, I don't think Seattle is any more dangerous than any other city, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me. So I think this is it today. As much as I've liked hanging out here, I think I'm about done with the city. I am an introvert, and being around lots of traffic and noise is tiring for me, so I think I'm going to take off. So that ends it here today for me. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.